But when I started working at the Information Lab, we were only with 7 consultants, and that's 2.5 years ago. And by now we've more than doubled this number. And so last year, Joris and Lars joined the Information Lab. And we soon discovered that all 3 of us really like sports and like to work with sports data. So let's go to the next slide, please. We decided to combine our efforts and create Halftime Heroes. And yeah, basically start to do sports data projects with the 3 of us and build visualizations and yeah, put this all on our shared account of Halftime Heroes. So this is if you're interested in sports data, this is a really nice place where you can find some inspiration and well, a little bit of community. That's a little bit about us. I will give the word to Joris now to take you on our 10 steps dashboarding journey.
Yeah, thank you, Bibi. Hi, everyone. So today we're going to talk about the Winter Olympics, like, well, you said in during the introduction. A little bit of background: when we founded Halftime Heroes, we came in contact with a data partner, and that allowed us to get our hands on all Winter Olympics data of all historic events of the Winter Olympics. And then Marise invited us as well to speak at the Tableau user group, which is really nice. So thanks, Marise, for that. And we thought, okay, what do we want to actually present? Are we going to just show them the dashboards, or are we going to do some things differently? And we think we have a nice approach for you today. I think historically, also when I started using Tableau, the process looked a little bit like, first I had the data, I would sort it, arrange it, and then I would present it visually. And my idea was always, okay, so people can explore the data themselves. But then I came across this image, but also across some great resources. And actually the final step is, I think, a really nice one, where you really take someone that uses your dashboard by the hand and guide them through a nice story. So our goal when we got the Olympics data was really to start creating dashboards that tell a story rather than just present the data visually. And today we created a 10-step guide on how we did this for the Olympics data, and we're going to share it with you. Please note that this is our own view. So these are our own 10 steps that we followed, and it's not necessarily the best way. So we're also really curious on how you would approach this, and maybe it's different from our approach. So let's get into it. The first step, of course, is data. And I think that for us, this was the starting point. So we through GraceNote, that's the company that provides the data, we got the opportunity to get all historic data for the Olympics. And it was actually a really nice approach that we first started with the data instead of first coming up with a topic and then looking for the data. Because we realized, Lars and me made a dashboard about Messi versus Ronaldo a couple of weeks back. And we first had the idea, but not the data. We went looking for the data, but it turned out to be really complicated. So we think it's best to take your data as a starting point rather than the other way around. We're also really curious what you think about this. But for us, it all started with the data. The second step we did was we went looking for inspiration. So what's out there already? There's a lot of people, of course, in the Tableau community that make great stuff. But also even outside of the Tableau community, there's people that make great data visualizations. For example, New York Times, Washington Post, they make great stuff. So we just went looking for stuff that's already there to find some inspiration on how we could create cool dashboards and stories as well. So these are a few examples here on the slide that you can see. Then the first step was, after we had all this inspiration, then we started brainstorming. Okay, what topics did we see? What topics do we think are interesting? What topics can we make a nice story around? And then I actually came up with the idea, just to give you an example, for we made multiple dashboards. And one of them, I came up with this idea because I read this last summer. This is a news article about Dutch cyclist Mathieu van der Poel. He was competing in the Tour de France, and then on one of the days he got off his bike in the Tour de France. He flew to Japan, so from France to Japan, and then a couple of days later he already had the Olympic game. And I was wondering, okay, doesn't this impact maybe the athletes that they have to travel that far and they don't really rest in between? So I came up with the question, okay, maybe there's a relationship between the distance that the athletes need to travel and the results that they get. So that for me was the starting point of one of the dashboards, just to give you an idea how this brainstorming goes. So the next step after you have this brainstorm session for us was, okay, ask yourself questions. What are you trying to explain? What is your topic? What's the goals you want to reach? But also what research questions can you think of so that you really approach this like a little bit of a research. So like you can see here on the right, I made some questions, some main question and sub questions that actually give me a little bit more direction for my story. So well, you can read them here yourselves. On to the next step, which is representation. After I had this research questions, or we had this research questions, we started thinking of ways how can we now visualize these questions. Of course, you want to answer them, but you want to answer them visually as well. So a thing that helped us really is this overview that you see. There's also one on Tableau Public made by a colleague of ours, Andy Kriebel. Maybe you've seen it before. I favorite it because I use it a lot. What you can do is you can check, okay, what question am I answering? Maybe I'm answering a change over time type of question. I can select it, and I can even get some more inspiration on different visual graphs that I can use to visualize change over time. So that for us was the next step. Let's go back here. So after that, and yeah, notice that we already had 5 steps without even really touching the data. We just knew what data we had, but we didn't work with it yet. So we just did research into, okay, what questions do we want to answer? How can we visualize that? And then finally, step 6 was loading the data into Tableau Prep to see what we got, to do some pre-processing, see what columns we have, all that sort of stuff. I'm gonna take a sip of water. And after that, we just started to create a lot of messy sheets, and I'll open Tableau quickly to give you an idea. So that's what we started with, a lot of messy worksheets with just random stuff. Sorry. Yeah, to test out what works and what does not. So it's just a lot of messy sheets where we don't worry about how it looks like, but just if it can help us answer the questions that we want. So it's always a bit of a challenge to get back to my presentation somehow. There it is. Yeah, so it's purely, so we don't do anything with the formatting yet. We just try to discover if the sheets that we have in mind, if they work. So that's that. I'm now going to hand over. I think it's a good time because my throat is starting to be a little bit annoying to give the word to Lars. So I'm going to stop sharing as well, and Lars can take over from here.
Okay, yours. Thank you. And I already saw a joke in the chat about your messy sheets. I want to make the joke myself, but someone was first. So I like that one. So let's see, share screen. So can you guys see the screen? Yeah, maybe.
Yes, we can.
Okay, that's great. I will put it on presenter mode. So yeah, step 7. So we already have the data. We already have some questions. Yours showed you that we already looked within Tableau how it could look, what kind of charts we can make, what kind of maps we can make, what can we do with the data. But like, if you want to tell a story, of course, you need to build that story. And for me, actually, the most important part to start with is looking at your audience. So who is the audience and what is the thing you want them to remember? And I always use these pictures here at the bottom of the different cars or the different dashboards, showing like the different types of users. So is your user like the Tesla guy who wants a smooth design, simple design, or is it more like this guy who is, I want to say driving the space shuttle, but that's not correct, but flying with the space shuttle, who wants all the buttons and the parameters and options. So that's the thing you really should think about, I guess. And then, of course, step 8, the looks. And for this, we use a tool called Figma, but there are also other tools you can use. It's a really great tool to make prototypes, to make wireframes. I will just show you in a minute. But before you can start making your design, it's good to think about some things like color, font, maybe icons. So have a look how I did that. So for color, this time I used a website called Pictular. There are multiple websites for color. I can show you here is a list I have with all these different sites you can use to create palettes. But now I use this one because what's nice here, you can type stuff. So I typed, for instance, winter from Winter Olympics, pressed enter, and then you get these suggestions of colors. You can pin them and you can also export them. So that's a nice thing to just get inspired. For fonts, I mostly use Google Fonts, but you also have a tool called Adobe Fonts, or there are other tools. Here you can type, for instance, is fun. You can say, for instance, I want only sans serif fonts. And then you can have a look at them and then compare them and think about what's best for your design. Icons, again, a lot of different tools to do so, but I like the noun project because when you go, for instance, to a type of icon and you select it, you can also change the color before you export it. So that's maybe a good trick to remember. So let's have a look at Figma. I think I already opened it. Check it. So this is Figma. Actually, in Figma, you can make like drafts of your design. At the top, you see like the colors I used, the fonts I tried, the logos I'm using in the dashboard. And here are some screenshots from Tableau. And I always start with like the alignment of my dashboard. So I create a grid system. Here in the right side, you can define the number of columns, for instance, 12. Or for this design, I used 8. And the nice thing about this is that you can use the grid to then align your components. So you see the snapping lines. And in this way, this is really clean, but like the working version is like very messy, like I'm trying stuff, maybe this looks better, maybe add a block of text here. So first make this wireframe, then already start designing. So you see the colors and you see the text coming here. Also already some logos, some design stuff. And then the final part, and that's the trick, I remove like these placeholders. These placeholders are here for my visualizations I made in Tableau. So for instance, this one. So let's copy it. So I use this placeholder. I remove the placeholder and then you can easily export. So you can export this as a PNG or a scalable vector. And you can use this within Tableau. And that's actually the last step of, or not the last step, but it's the last step within designing in Tableau. It's like doing the formatting. So yours already showed you the Messi sheets, so not the Ronaldo sheet, but the Messi sheets. And the final step is to make them a little bit less messy. And you can think about a lot of things. So here's the dashboard I made. Behind there is like this image I made in Figma. I just showed you. If you remove it, you see actually this is only what you see now is the things I really made within Tableau. But what's important to do is think about your formatting. So do you want, for instance, show the axes, or do you want to remove it? How do you want to show the tooltips? In this case, I removed all the tooltips. How do you want to show the numbers? Do you need to round them, or do you need to change them? What colors do you want to use? Maybe you are going to use the Tableau palette, or you're going to use the palette you created yourself. In this case, I created this palette myself. And all these formatting options are really important to think about. And I think a good tip is I always start like formatting on the highest level, so on workbook level. So by doing this on workbook level, I'm sure I don't have different fonts in my design. So that's a small tip to show. And after like designing, formatting your workbook, your Tableau dashboard, there's one, I think, final step, and that is to share it, like we are actually doing now with this presentation. Share, let everybody know you made this. We are using Twitter, LinkedIn, but also Tableau Public. So let's maybe have a look at the public. Oh, sorry. Public. So on this page, we are sharing our visualizations, and we are just started with this Halftime Heroes project. So we are putting new stuff on here, but yeah, I think if you will follow us in the coming weeks, so the Olympics starts at the 4th of February, we will post all our dashboards here, and hopefully you will like them and maybe share them as well. And actually, that was already the last slide. So like Joris said, if you have any questions or you think, okay, this step should be there, or you're missing a step, please let us know in the chat, or maybe in the Q&A.
Is it possible to have a closer look at the dashboard, because it went a bit fast?
Yeah.
You showed all the steps, and it's also good to have a good look at the end result.
Yeah, well, so we actually made multiple dashboards. So this is just one of them. I think yours made 3, BB made also 1 or 2 dashboards. Yeah, so this is actually one, but I can, of course, show it in more detail.
Yes, and if there are other questions for Halftime Heroes, please drop them in the Q&A, then we can have a look at the questions as well. Yeah. Should
I check the Q&A first?
At the moment, all the questions are answered, so
okay, cool.
And you can show the dashboard.
Yeah, so this dashboard actually, for me, it was more about designing, like learning how to do it with Figma. Okay. But what I wanted to do was to check whether there is an effect when or if your birthday has an effect on the chances of winning. So I know in some sports it matters that if you are born in January, you have a better chance of getting into the highest level of sport. So I made this dashboard for myself to check all those different sports within the Winter Olympics. And then you can filter, for instance, we as Dutch people, we like speed skating. Yes. And I can look at the Netherlands. And then I can check if it's above the average. So I highlighted the first quarter. So this is all in one color. I also use this color in the title. And here I designed like a diamond-shaped waffle chart, which also highlights the percentage of athletes born in the first 3 months, so with the same color. And these icons, maybe I have to add them here as well, but these are like male athletes and female athletes. And if you change the filter, these colors also change. So this is 100%. And here you can also check out like the number of medals. So you can check out all medals, or maybe only the gold medals, or only silver medals.
Yeah.
So that's actually the dashboard.
Looks cool. And
Mm.
was there a winner or a specific sport that you saw that has the that your birthday month indeed did matter, or is it a bit too soon to really say that?
It's a bit soon, but I know from like team sports, it's more important. So for instance, ice hockey, you can see like the line is actually like there is a trend. But I found it interesting when I looked at snowboarding, for instance, that it looks the other way around. So it depends on the sport and how the selection goes, I guess. But I have to figure it out. So that's why we make those dashboards, to answer those questions.
It looks very beautiful indeed. Thank you.
You're
It's
welcome.
also very insightful to see, to see the steps, how you come there, and the one with the wire. I hadn't seen it before, but it's a very good idea to indeed use those placeholders and to not only like sketch it on a paper, but already to see what your end result looks like. So I thought it was a very cool addition, and I saw that you also had some a list with resources. And are you maybe willing to share them, that we can send an email to people that
Yeah, I'm thinking about writing a blog post about like all those. Yeah, I'm collecting them here for myself. So
that's even
like
then we can also share that. But those are cool resources.
Yeah, I will definitely share them. Not today, but somewhere this month.
No worries.
You're
And of
welcome.
course, it's also interesting to see the other dashboards you're creating, and maybe who's going to win. Maybe we can like bet on those sports somewhere. No, I don't bet, but you could do it maybe.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I
this
saw
is
that
one yours made, for instance. This is also a nice one. Maybe yours. Do you want to say something about this one as well?
Yeah, sure. I think we still have some time, and since there are no questions, we can go through this one. Yeah, these are all sneak peeks, so they're not on Tableau public yet. They're still blocked for the great public, so only we can see them. So this exclusive preview for you guys, and in the coming weeks we will publish them. But this dashboard is about the age distribution during the Winter Olympics. So at the top, you can see the average ages, the maximum ages and the minimum ages per edition of the Olympics. You can already see there's I think it's 1924. There's someone, a Swedish guy that competed there, was 58.
okay.
Oh, not sure what happened there. Oh, it's on the screen. So you see he's pretty old, but he even won a medal. So that's pretty cool. And then we can also see the minimum ages, and well, you can see there's a couple of editions that even people from 11 years old already are competing. So that's pretty young.
Yeah.
Then if we go down one visualization, what's also interesting to see is that if you take the age range from 11 years old to 20 years old, so that's the top graph, we can see that a bigger share of those are female. So that's the dark blue colors, female. And if we take a look at the 10 oldest ages, so from 48 to 58, then it's mostly male athletes that are still competing. So it looked like the female athletes were starting at an earlier age, and then the male athletes finished at a later age. But it's actually really small numbers that are competing. So it's sometimes for 58 years old is, for example, one athlete. So it's probably just due to chance. And then on the bottom, we have another graph with the minimum, average, and maximum age per sport. And what we can see is that Lars's favorite sport, curling, has on average, the highest age of contesters. And also the Swedish guy we saw before, he won a medal with curling. So you can still play that at a pretty late age. And then all the youngest athletes, so aged 11 those were all competing in figure skating. So probably, yeah, if you have kids that are still young, you should put them on that sport so they can compete in the Olympics very soon, if you want that. So yeah, that's this dashboard. And like we said, there's more coming out in the coming weeks. So it would be nice if you could, yeah, keep an eye out for that.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing.
Okay, I will stop the sharing.
Yeah, so if there are no further questions, I would say let's finish up. Yeah, thank you for attending, and I hope you've seen some useful tips. We have recorded this session, so you can watch them back, pause them, and rebuild. Johan gave some very useful tips, same for Halftime Heroes, and of course you can follow them on their socials. They all share a lot of content, so yeah, if you're looking for inspiration, please do. And well, having said that, if you are willing to speak at a Tableau user group, at our Tableau user group, feel also free to connect us, to contact us. But I think best is via Twitter if you have Twitter. It's at NL_TUG. So yeah, if you would like to share your story, give some tips, always very welcome to do so. And then we can see what fits and when you're up for. So if you want to, please contact us. We can also share that in end of March, beginning of April, we are planning to do our live session. We hope we can do it, but in these times, we'll never know. We're thinking of Rotterdam, 80s, 90s vibe. So we will give more information when we have it. And if we have to look at the situation. It can also be live again, online again, but we're aiming for live. We're aiming for a live event and also, of course, to live. Well, thank you very much for attending. Johan, do you have anything to add before we close the session?
Not at the moment, only that in the chat I can see lots of people asking for will be a live session again. And you just answered it. Like I said,
yeah, I didn't see this yet.
Yeah, just at the moment you told us. We really hope so, and you're definitely really invited if you do it live again. If it's virtual, of course, you're very welcome. And if you got any topics you want to discuss on the next meeting, please let us know. It's always nice to know what you like, what you don't like. Yeah. So please let us know. Yeah.
Yeah, it's to do together indeed, and your input is very welcome. So yes, please do. Yeah.
In the Q&A, there were some questions about singling out a single country. I will have a look at it and maybe write a blog post on it. It's just a topic I skipped yesterday because my presentation was too long. But I'll work them out for you.
That's nice. Thank you, Johan. I hear a lot of nice blog posts coming out. And yes, thank you for attending. And then I will close the session. And I hope I will all see you in person in the next event. So thank you and see you soon.
Thank you all.
Bye-bye.
Bye.